Hello dear viewers, this is Yasped on Ubuntu TV. We have a special program for you today. We have a special guest also here with us, Mr. Abdurrahman Mahdi, Chairman of ONLF. We are really pleased to have you here.
Me too, it is a great privilege to come to your studio.
Thank you. So let's get forward to our questions.
Okay.
Back in 2018, during the so-called reform, one of the breaking news, one of the hypes was your organization's decision to drop armed struggle and come back to the country and get registered in a lawful manner. But unfortunately, I don't think things are going well now. You dropped out of the election race. What happened?
First of all, ONLF, this is not the first time they opted for peace and to try to seek the rights of Somali people through peaceful means. In 1991, we did the same. We came back, and during the EPRDF, TPLF rule and the transitional period, we also participated in the election. We won about 87% of the votes. We built our first government, and within 2 years, we were provoked, and then the war happened, and it continued for 23 years. And then when the change came in Ethiopia, that change did not come simply. It took a long time. It took a different stages from those wars, all those conflicts, through the popular uprising, which that was the final trigger of it. But all people in Ethiopia actually struggle against the former regime. And when this transformation happened, and by that time we had many alliances. We had alliance with Gimbot 7, we have alliance with OLF, we had alliance with Sidama Liberation Front, we have alliance with the Gambelans, with other Ethiopians, to bring democratic change to Ethiopia. So when this happened, we were very euphoric, and we expected that the new change will bring a new, opening political space, new hope, and the people in Ethiopia will, for the first time, after almost 100 and something years of constant fighting and conflict within different sectors, this will have been something, a good chance actually, because we live in the 21st century, the world is changing, democracy has got stronger, the world is becoming one village, and everybody knows what's happening. For example, in the early 60s, 70s, we thought only Somalis were being oppressed or we have this difficulty, but later as things moved through the information age, we now understood every Ethiopian in Ethiopia have got the same difficulty, whether they are in Oromia, in Amhara, or Sidama, or even Tigray. People, the normal people are always marginalized on the edge, footless, shoeless, without any public support. There's only these elitist groups at the center, which always use this big name Ethiopia to oppress the rest. So for us, it was a new beginning. So we hope, we all come together, build a new country where each nation's right is respected. So when we come back here, the first thing we did was decide to relinquish arms voluntarily, without anybody forcing us. We relinquished our arms. We demobilized our Liberation Army, and we had specific agreements with the Ethiopian government of that time. The first thing was that we will have our right to pursue our political right through peaceful means, without any hindrance. The other one was the rehabilitation of the fighters and to incorporate them into security force, to give them other livelihood. So we had the agreement was very, very concise, but there were also inner agreements. And what happened was when we came, after the first 3 months honeymoon, with these big galas of welcoming us, immediately we saw what was happening. The regional administration blockaded the opening of our offices. Our members started harassing. We consistently complained to the federal government. No action was taken. We decided that, since peace is very hard, very elusive, we should be patient. We swallowed many things. We followed the law of the rule, registered, and then we started exercising our political rights. But we had many impediments. And in 2019, November, we held our first Congress inside the country for almost 20 years. And where that was, I was elected before I was a foreign minister and then Secretary General, then I became the chairman. Immediately the regional administration declared war on ONLF. Because I was elected, they didn't like me. The current leader didn't like me. And he took away all the amenities given us before. the cars, everything. And immediately we started investing in dividing the organization. We complied to this about NEBE, but nothing happened. And finally, when the election time came, the first test was the registration of the candidates. In the Somali region, there are 300 candidates, 23 for the, 24 for the, including Dirraba for the federal parliament, and 272 for the regional seats. So we went to the polls, we started to register for our candidates. They just refused our members to register. They either blocked them, they closed the offices, they did a lot of harassments. So we managed only to register 100 of our candidates. We wrote official letter to NEBE, and we brought all the evidence, video evidence. We were speaking to Madam Pertugan on an hourly basis. So NEBE actually looked into the issue and then decided, because they tried to influence people on the ground to stop what they were doing, but even she was insulted on some levels, like in Liban, personally. And what happened, NEBE decided to register our members in Addis Ababa. So 140 candidates were registered in Addis Ababa, and we lost almost 60 candidates through that process. We managed only to register 240 candidates. So that was the first test. And then the next one came when it came to the campaigning. Our members were either beaten, harassed. Some of our candidates were either bribed, given money. Some of them were put in detention. And we also complained to NEBE, some of them were released. And finally, we lost also another 15 members, our candidates, because either they were bribed or they were afraid. Their families were put pressure on. So they used every trick in the book to actually block us from exercising our political rights. Despite that, we persisted on in trying to be reasonable and see the next phase. So in March, beginning of May, the registration of the voters started. So the agreement was, and that's actually how the world does, registrations. We were supposed to have our agents on the ground. We were supposed to know how many cards were brought to the polling stations or the constituencies. We were never told that. We just saw the other day all the cards in the town being divided among houses of PP members. Only few cards brought to the registration stations, and even some of the members were refused to register. We took pictures of it. We saw what was happening from Moyale up to Jigjiga. The same thing is happening everywhere. So we took all the pictures. We could make a very, very strong complaint to NEBE, including the other political parties. And NEBE initially actually looked into the issue, and they said, okay, we are going to investigate. And they postponed the election, Somali election, for 3 months, including other parts of Ethiopia. And we brought all the evidence. Initially, there was a big relief from the feeling we were getting from NEBE was that they are going to look into this. And the investigation team was delayed. First thing happened was they just sent partial investigation. They didn't do all the country. There were key, constituencies in Dawa, Liban, Afder, Nogop, Erer area, parts of, Gabredar and Warder area. So they just took just few of them. So we're expecting this will be a sample, and then what comes out of this will be for the wider. We told them we consider this as a sample, but they said no. They refused. So we said, okay, let's see what comes out of this. And then we sent them our positions. We told them for a fair election to happen, we need 3 things. We need, first of all, new cards, because all the cards are in the hands of PP. The other thing, we need neutral NEBE officers there, because the NEBE officers in the Somali state were all working government employees. They're either teachers or they were health workers, and most of them were intimidated. If you don't work with us, you're going to lose your job. That's exactly what happened to our members. Now, yesterday, someone came to me in my hotel, one of our candidates from Liban, Deka Suftu. He was a health worker. Because he was a candidate for ANLF, his salary was stopped and he was just thrown out of the jobs. So that is the way they were behaving toward us. So finally, we said we need independent, candidates from even the rest of Ethiopia, wherever it comes. We don't care whether they come from Amhara or Oromia or southern, the Dabub countries, or even from afar, wherever. We need some people who are neutral, first of all, Navy officers, and then we need these cards to be changed, since you have got 3 months, and we need independent security, because the people who are manning these polling stations are militias, not even the new police. And the militias are under the command of the district commissioner. That was people who are blocking us from registering. So we said, unless those conditions are met, there will be no election and we cannot participate. So NABE, after waiting for 3 months, they just said, there's no problem, everything is fine. They brought few cards, the same cards again, to certain constituencies and said, we are going to hold an election the way it was before. So there's no point for us to participate in an election. We know it's rigged already. All the cards are in the hands of the PP candidates.
Okay. I have a follow-up question on the election process, but I want to ask you one question before that. Do you regret your decision to drop arms and start struggling in a peaceful way?
No. We see peace.
I mean, watching all this happening, do you regret your decision now?
No, we take a strategic, principled decision to go through peaceful means, and we don't regret that. We don't regret that. What we regret is that we were betrayed. But at the same time, we believe, peace is very important. That's why
Who do you think betrayed you? The federal government or the...
Both of them, because the regional government cannot do anything without the willingness of the federal government. We have been very supportive of the federal government. We have been, always, very hopeful that they will do change, but they didn't do anything. It's just one party rule. They opted for their party instead for the wider peace in the Somali state. So we no longer consider the federal government is free from this. Unless they were willing for them this to happen, I cannot put it on the regional administrator. Because he's under the rule, he's under the same party. We complained to the party here at the federal level, we complained to the Prime Minister. We did everything, we tried every office, but all the doors were blocked.
Okay. I was watching Madam Burtukan's press briefing yesterday, and she was saying that the election was peaceful and it was very excellent. So, but the things you're telling me now are obvious, I think, for anyone who wants to see. What's your take on the National Board of...
First, I respect very much Ms. Burtukan. We used to struggle together. She is actually an activist who fought for the rights of the Ethiopian people, went to prison, and in our dealing with us, we believe she is very honest, but I don't believe she has got power. I believe she has been coerced. I believe the Navy she is in, I think she's an individual. I don't believe she had my decision on what happened. That's my personal belief. I've got very confidence in her. I know her. She's a very democratic person.
So you don't think NABE is an independent institution?
I'm not speaking about, I'm speaking about Burtukan. NABE is not an independent institution. As a lady, I have great respect for her. That's one thing. But if you look also at the way she spoke when the declaration of the June election was said, if you go back to that clip, she actually said that we have difficulty in the Somali region. There's a lot of, actually, if you look at that clip, that was actually the real Burtukan that I knew. So I believe whatever happened between then and now, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Mustafa was also an excellent activist back in the days, right? I think many people would agree with this statement. When he becomes the president of the Somali region, many people were optimistic. I think you were also optimistic. So did you think that he wasn't fit for the job, or did power corrupt him? What happened to the region?
Well, we have got doubts about this activist issue. Mustafa became very active when his brother was killed, not before that. For the last 27 years, the Somali people have been killed by daily basis. More than 50,000 are missing. Many women were raped. Did you hear about him before that? For the last 2-3 years? No, he was just, maybe he will write one article, something like that, but he was working for the UN, enjoying and working for himself. The activists are people like us who have never worked for their lives. All we have been doing was fighting for our people for more than 50 years. So whatever his motive, I can understand. If your brother has killed you, then you have to fight for the rights of your people. But anyway, Mustafa, I don't like very much dwell on him, really, not to talk about him. But I don't believe he has done a good service for his people. It's on history, on record. This will stay on record for many years. And the change that happened in Ethiopia, he just took advantage of that. The peace that came did not come by Mustafa. The peace came because ONLF and the Ethiopian federal government stopped fighting. If we take guns tomorrow, there will be no peace in the Ogaden. Because we put down guns, and the Ethiopian government put down guns, that was why peace came. It was not brought by Mustafa or anybody. Although he claims that he has, brought peace on this and this and this. It's just because of the decision to lay down arms. That's why the Somali region is today peaceful. It's all a decision, and we hope we will keep it that way. That's what we believe we will do it as much as humanly possible.
Okay. But I watched a press release by the regional government. I think it was a reply for your organization's press release. So the regional government called your organization war profiteers, and they think, or actually they said that you're quitting the election because you want to take arms again. Is that what you're after? So are you planning to take up arms again?
Well, this press was written by Mustafa himself. We know that because we know his language. He has been insulting us for the last 2 years.
Oh, do you think he personally wrote
He
this?
personally wrote that his language, his exact language. We know how he talks, the way he writes English. We know even his diction. And if you look at the Somali clips for the last 2 years, he was constantly insulting us as an organization, as persons. He's always saying the same thing again and again, even against the rules of NABE, which is the political parties cannot insult each other. They can say parties this and this is not doing the right thing, but I cannot say, for example, Abiy is a thief or Abiy is something like that, because Abiy is the president of a PP party. I cannot insult him personally. But I can say the PP party is not developing or is not really good for the country. But he has been personally insulting us as a party, as members of the party. So, he's breaking the rules of even the election rules and party rules. He was actually doing all these things. And this now press release is not a very decent, press release, because it's insulting. We just said I can complain about the election process. I can support someone taking a decision. I'm not insulting anybody, but he's personally insulting us. He's instigating us to go to violence. That's what he would like. That has been trying to do the last 2 years for us to take arms so that he can get an opportunity to hurt us. But we deny him that opportunity, and we hope we will deny him again that.
So what's on the shelf for you now? I mean, if you're going to continue struggling peacefully, what are you planning to do now?
Well, first of all, the whole the whole Ethiopia is the same as us. There's a lot of issues within Ethiopia about these elections, about the whole kind about the fighting going on, about the future of Ethiopia. So we are part of that bigger bloc. We are not isolated. So for us as a party, there's a new challenge. There's a new challenge how to struggle peacefully against that antagonistic, regional administration. How to assert our rights without going to violence. That's a big challenge, and that's what we are trying to train our people, that we can struggle for our rights without resorting to guns. But it depends also on the other side. Because if you are being killed or put into prison or your members are being harassed, how much can the leadership contain the youth? That will be, it depends also on the honors on the other side. But for us, we don't have any plans currently to go into an army struggle, and we hope that will be maintained. At least, still the agreement is intact, at least on the paper. On the paper. But for us, it's very challenging, especially among our rank and file. They feel that they have been betrayed. They feel this is not going to happen. They feel the right of the Somali people, especially the local people, to choose their leaders has been taken away from them. And that resentment, we don't know where it will go. Nobody can guarantee that. Yeah.
Why do you think the federal government backed the Somali region, to do all this?
Well, because at this time the federal government is in war, and they don't want any trouble. They like status quo. So maybe they thought at least the status quo may be this way.
But they think you somehow support TPLF? Or?
Well, this guy always says we support TPLF, but he did not fight how much we fought. We were fighting TPLF for the last 23 years. Our members died. We lost more than 10,000 fighters. Where was he? Drinking coffee in Westfield in Nairobi. How many of our members who are being detained and put in prison? So the people can say you just support this and this and this. They, like Napoleon, 1984, always, this group always like to label someone with the enemy. So we are not supporting anybody. We're struggling for the rights of our people.
Different political parties created the election race throughout Ethiopia. In Oromia region, OLF and OFC dropped out the election race. They boycotted the election. And some parties in Walaita and in Benishangul also. Do you have a plan to create some kind of grand coalition between these parties?
Well, it will depend on you don't create coalitions just because someone is against the federal government. There are certain principles we uphold. We are a National Liberation Front struggling for the self-determination of Somali people. And self-determination is a principle that many people in Ethiopia share. So, for example, it depends on our principles. For example, we have got certain common shared values with other parties. More than 20 parties who are already discussing to ally together to defend the right of self-determination for all people in Ethiopia. For the self-rule, we are against, unitary state. We want a strong self-developed self-rule. So we have many parties who are either not, maybe participate in the election, who did not participate. Our principle is to defend that right. Defend the right of the self-determination in the Ethiopian constitution currently, and the international, Universal Charter of the Human Rights. So that's what we are looking for many allies.
Is there any talks? Did you start anything with these parties?
We have been doing it for the last 2 years. We have got many parties who are, who are ready to defend this, and it will depend on how it works out. Of course, there are the parties on the other side. So we have got certain, for example, before we had an alliance with OLF and Gimbot 7. Gimbot 7 always wants a unitary state. OLF wants a self-reliant state. But, for example, we had on each side we have got certain principles. For example, with Gimbot 7 we had this agreement, we fight for democratic rights in Ethiopia, for everyone. So if you agree on that, we can have this difference. For other parties who support democracy and also self-determination, we have got a different type of alliance. So again, that's what we'll be doing. We'll be working throughout Ethiopia because we cannot get our rights alone as Somalis. If people in Amhara or Oromia or Tigray or Afar are not getting that right, we will not get that right. So we need a wider alliance. That's our perception.
Yeah. Last week, the former Ministry of Women and Youth and Children, if I'm not mistaken, Filsan Abdullahi, tweeted something about a meeting with ONLF leaders. And after that tweet, it took her like 3 or 4 days to resign from her post. Do you have anything to do with her resignation? I want to tell you where I'm coming from. I heard something that Filsan and you are related in blood, something like that. I heard a rumor like that. And also, do you think you still have people in the government who supports your idea, your party's idea?
First of all, for us, it was even a surprise. We didn't expect her to resign. But we knew her position before, because Filsan is a very outspoken person. We could follow her on the Twitter and everywhere. She always speaks her mind. So we believe that she has been doing good work for the women in Ethiopia in general. Even we were actually, complaining about her. She didn't even go to other cities. Even she was born in Tulu Center for the woman. She was working mostly in other parts of Ethiopia. So we were saying, you are forgetting your back home. Why don't you go to Fik or go to Daghabur or Kabindahar and meet the women, all these, poor women who are being, we have got many women, more than hundreds of women who have been raped before, have no rights, nothing, and have mental illness, physical illness. We're telling her, why don't you do something for them? And she was saying, first of all, let me build a bigger Ethiopia, then I can come back to my home. So this a decision for us even was a surprise. But in principle, that was what we were believing, that if someone has a right to express their concerns, that's very healthy. Well, that's what we believe. That's why we supported. And when she came to Jijiga last Saturday, we met her not because of we're talking about this. She asked us a question. We hear, Abdiya, that you're dropping out of the election. Why? She asked us, are you going back to fight again? She was saying, please don't do that. So she was advising us not to go to war or these things, maintain the peace. So that was a line of discussion. It was nothing about a nation or about anything like that. As for this concept that she is close to me, that's the mentality of this regional administration. That's what they espouse. They want to divide Somali people into clans, tribes, something like that. It's very unfortunate. I am a struggler. I started one struggle for the Somali people when I was in the teens, 16 years old. And now I'm almost 60 and something. So I was fighting for all Somalis, for all, not only Somalis, for all over the world. In the early 70s, we were supporting Che Guevara, we were supporting for the freedom of the world. In the 60s, 70s, we were in the youth movement, in the anti-Haile Selassie movement, anti-Derg movement. So we were all these, that's where we were grown up. So this idea of tribalism is in the mind of these people now ruling our region. But everything they see in tribal colors. They put us in tribal colors. Abi is from that tribe, so he's doing this and this. We don't have any such sentiment. We are revolutionary people fighting for the rights of the people. Even now, we don't only fight for Ethiopia. We are Africanists. We want Africa to have one state, to become independent of, China is now developing, Asia, Africa, Europe, America. So that's what the other day I was telling you, I'm Africanist. So they want to put me into a little bag called clan. I will not accept that. It's the illness in their mind, not on me. My heart is pure.
But they accuse you for the same reason. They say like he wants to secede Somalia and make a smaller country and something like that.
Well, right of self-determination doesn't mean only secession. It's recognized in the Ethiopian constitution. It's recognized internationally. So it's a right. Everybody has a right to express their right, first of all. But the question is, who is suffering? Is it only Somalis in Ethiopia? Why is not fighting only happening in Somalia, the Somali state? It happened in Gambela, Benishangul, Oromia, Tigray, Afar, everywhere. These nations are all expressing their will to be more freer, to have self-rule, to be recognized. That's a human essential being of all human beings. Muslims want to be recognized in Ethiopia. Christians feel the same. Now we have got many smaller communities who have nobody knows. We've got the Omo, who have about 20,000 people. They have also their rights to their land, to have internal self-determination. So that's not a crime, even if you want to secede, it's not a crime. Because if it's a crime, it's not being the Ethiopian constitution. If I say today I want to secede, it's not a crime. But if I try to get it by force, then it becomes a crime. Or maybe that can be called crime. But always these people who want to divide these people, we want to have the human being in this country called Ethiopia to be open-minded, to be democratic, to fight for their rights, not to become a slave to a state. That's what we tell. The state in Ethiopia owns the people. The people doesn't own the state. The people in this country have been subjected to this for more than centuries. So what we want is a liberated people in Ethiopia who are free-minded. Because if you go to Europe now, there are no borders. There's no meaning. Border has no meaning. So that's what we want for this area. We don't care about these little flags, any African little flags. They're all begging. They're all begging. Europe give us money. China give us money. America give us money. What's the use of the state if you cannot feed your people? If your people are being raped inside their own country, if we are killing each other, so what is the use of these many states? That's why for us a state has no meaning. A state in Africa, small state, whether it's smaller than Somalia or even Ethiopia or even East Horn of Africa. Our vision is bigger than that. We want to have an Africa that can be developed like any other part in Europe or Asia or Americas. And that's where in the end we'll go.
So if you raised many things about self-determination, I also prepared one question for you on that. As a chairman of ONLF, parties that fought for self-determination for almost more than two decades, if I'm correct. So I think self-determination is at stake now in Ethiopia. If you follow the mainstream media, they're all against self-determination. They are all against Article 39. They said we were one people with one identity and one religion, and etc. You know the details, I hope. So I think the coming new government will entertain the idea of at least removing Article 39 from the Constitution. So what do you think is the future for Somali peoples look like?
Well, I don't think about only Somali people. If that happens, and Article 39, the right of self-determination of states is taken away, I think Ethiopia will go back to the 60s. Simple. We'll start the whole cycle again. Another cycle of wars, cycle of liberation fronts, cycle of fighting for people. So we'll continue the same story again. Go back, instead of going forward, we'll go backwards. And history doesn't go backwards. It's just a small time will happen only. The people in this country have been fighting for almost a century. It's not only Somalis who are fighting. Oromos are fighting, and Afars are fighting, Bangladesh are fighting, Benishangul are fighting. Everybody is fighting. So it is not only any small nation, Ethiopia will be fighting for its right. So if you think if we have this imaginary idea of one Ethiopia, it's not true. Go to Somali state, only the elite, few elites speak Amharic. They don't know the Amharic language. I don't know the Amharic language. I don't have any idea about it. I don't eat the same food. I don't take the same clothes. I don't have the same religion as many of them. So to become one, first of all, diversity has to be respected. And then we'll respect each other, then we'll love each other, we'll become together. Now you are not killing me, I can talk to you now here, safely here. I'm not in the Sabah because it's peaceful, I'm respected. But if my identity is not respected, tomorrow I will be in the bush. So what we need is really to think very, very careful about this idea. Not to be idealistic and to build castle in the air. The Ethiopian people have fought 100 years to achieve a measure of self-determination. And that is a good beginning. Instead of taking that back, we should speak about how to make it a reality, how every nation can have its own peaceful government, and then we can come together and work together. Later, that can develop into a bigger state. So I don't see any reason why that should not happen. This idea that we are going to put together people by force, and then what will be the result? Wars. One is already happening. There will be others coming. It's not only here. So what is